turn it over to Dr. Kedar.
Surviving in the Middle East is not easy at all. It's the most miserable area in the world, not because of the conditions, not because of the terrain, not because of the climate, it's because it's a self-inflicted misery by people who live there, no, people who die there instead of living there. The Middle East could be a heaven on earth if people would cooperate, if people would put the future in front of their eyes and not the past. And we hope that one day will come, and as the rabbi said, the Middle East will be part of a culture of peace rather than a culture of hatred, struggle, and death. So this is the problem. The problems of the Middle East are so complicated that even in this evening, and even with much patience, it will be hard to engulf all the problems. I will try to touch some of them. First of all, here in this country, people keep asking me, okay, we know that there are radical Muslims, Islam, we see them on the screen, we unfortunately see what they do, how they behead people, how they burn people. Is there moderate Islam? And if there is, where are they? All the Muslims are terrorists. All the Muslims are like this. All of them share these ideas. All of them share this way of conduct. Where are the others? I think this question bothers many people. I would like to share with you my idea about this issue of radical Islam versus other kinds of Islam, by saying that there is no radical Islam. There is not such a thing. Just like there is no such a thing like moderate Islam. There is Islam. Why? There is no radical Quran versus moderate Quran, different Quran. There is no radical Hadith, means oral tradition, versus another library of moderate Hadith. And there is no radical biography of Muhammad versus another biography which is moderate. Okay, because these are the three bases of the religion of Islam: the Quran, the Hadith, the oral tradition, and the biography of Muhammad. Biography of Muhammad is very important because they believe that he was guided by Allah. He was infallible, and whatever he did is the role model for every Muslim in every time and in every place. So following him, following his footsteps in his biography, actually gives the Muslim the solution how to behave in every situation which the Quran does not relate to. And the Quran doesn't relate to all the situations in the world. So they need, this is why they need an oral tradition and the biography. So these are the three basic sources of Islam, which are all written, taken from the 7th century, the time that he and his direct followers were alive. In the Quran, the big Quran, there are all the range of ideas. For example, there is a verse in the Quran which says, La ikraha fi din, means in Arabic, no compulsion in religion. Great. You cannot force anything on anybody. You cannot force him to believe. You cannot force him to fast in Ramadan. You cannot force him to give gifts to others as he should according to the Quran. You cannot force him to go to Mecca to Hajj. All these things come from within. Okay? So there is no way to impose religion or anything connected to religion on anyone, great. I could live with this. I think it's right, it's correct, it's in every religion, in every set of beliefs. You cannot impose belief on anyone. But if you turn the page, you find the verses about the jihad. There is place, there is some seats here, and maybe here as well. Please come. So, this verse in the Quran, no compulsion in religion, great idea, good idea, moderate idea, most moderate idea. But if we turn the page, we start finding other verses which talk about the jihad, the war, slay the infidels, all these ideas which are in the Quran as well. In the same Quran, I would say all the way to the other side. The same thing with the hadith, with the oral tradition. There is a saying attributed to the Prophet Muhammad which says, he who kills one man as if he killed the whole mankind, whole humanity. Great idea. Don't kill even one, because you are as if you killed the whole, everybody in the world. Great idea. But if you turn the page, you find another quotation which says that the end of time will never come until the Muslims will fight the Jews and kill them all, to a degree that if the Jew runs and hides behind the tree or the rock, the tree and the rock will shout, "Oh Muslim, a Jew is hiding behind it, come and take it." Means not only the Muslims will fight the Jews, even the rocks and the trees, means the whole universe. So, what's the hadith? Moderate or radical? Okay? All them up. And the biography of Muhammad tells us about an occasion when he was sitting in Medina and he was speaking with his friends, and all of a sudden a funeral of a Jew passed in front of him because one of them was brought to be buried. He asked somebody, who is the man who was brought to the cemetery? So they told him. He said, "Oh, I knew the man. He was an honest guy. And wow, he's dead." So Muhammad stood up in honor of the Jew until the funeral turned to another street. Correct? But if you turn the page, you find another occasion when he slaughtered 800 Jews in Medina because they refused to convert to Islam. So what was his attitude to Jews? Complicated, I would say. Okay? So the Islamic sources, the most basic Islamic sources, have ideas, verses, precedents, which are all the range from zero violence and 100% tolerance to 100% violence, 0% tolerance. Now, what we have today is something different. Imagine a Muslim who was born here in Delhi, the best place on earth. People are moderate, people are nice, people are kind, people are accepting, people are holding the door for you. People will do anything for you because they are good people. A Muslim who was born into this society, when he goes up and tries and wants to shape his ideas, if he internalized the culture of Delhi, most probably he will pick from the Quran that la ikraha fi din, no compulsion in religion. From the Hadith, he who kills one man as if he killed all mankind. And from the precedents of the biography of Muhammad, he will take the precedent when he stood up in memory of one Jew. If he was born, let's say, in Libya, where people are killing each other day and night, when everyone is either your brother or your enemy, when people are seeing everything in this black and white, when people are decisive and cruel, as we unfortunately see in Libya, most probably somebody who was born there, when he has to shape his Islamic ideas, he will pick from the Quran the jihad verses which they actually justify what he does to others in Libya, because he declares that the others are kuffar, are infidels. This is why he can use the jihad against them according to the Quran. He will take from the hadith and from the biography of Muhammad, he will take the things which fit his culture. Means he tailors his garment of the materials which fit his measurements. So what we have is not radical Islam versus moderate Islam. What we have is radical Muslims, people, versus moderate Muslims, either individuals or groups. Because when they group together according to their culture, we find organizations like Al-Qaeda, Islamic State, Boko Haram in Africa, or in all these terrorist organizations which we call them, because those people who gather around one idea share the same idea, the same verses from the Quran. And on the other side, we find many organizations of Muslims, people who are moderate. I myself met in Toronto recently a group of Muslims called Muslims Facing Tomorrow. If you heard about Rahil Raza, a lady, and her husband, Suhail Raza, and many others in this organization, they are moderate as could be. They will not kill even a mosquito on the wall, because it's not their culture. They are totally moderate. They feel with Jews just like brothers, because we don't share the same religion. They pray 5 times a day in the mosque, and we pray in a synagogue, and the Christians in a church. They share the same culture with the Jews and the Christians, who are moderate as they are. While they are targeted, these moderate Muslims are targeted by the radical Muslims from the other side of the equation, because they are moderate, just like as we are targeted on the Christians. So what we have today actually is a rift, or I would say not exactly, but a whole scale. Every Muslim in the world, from 1.5 billion Muslims in the world, is somewhere on the scale between 0% violence and 100% acceptance and being moderate on one side, and on the other side, other pole, 100% violence and 0% tolerance. Everyone is somewhere in between. I would suggest, I think that most of them are in the more moderate side, and a minority are in the radical side of the people. But whenever there is some kind of encounter between radical side and moderate side, violent side and non-violent side, who will prevail? Okay? And this is the point. The violent side enforces its ideas, its ways of behavior on the moderate side, regardless of the size. This is not a democracy. Things are not being done by voting, by majority versus minority. This is not how it works. It works according to the more powerful one, the armed one, the one with no restrictions, who imposes his ideas on others regardless of his size. And this is the problem of Muslims before others. Because if you trace the numbers of casualties of the radical Muslims during the last, let's say, 20 years, you'll find that more than 90% of the casualties of the people who were killed, beheaded, are Muslims who do not share the same culture with the radical ones, because they are moderate and they don't believe in beheading people and so on. So, as a conclusion of this point, we don't have radical Islam versus modern Islam, because there is only one Islam, which is like what we say in our sources, hafoch ba vehafoch ba dechula ba. Turn it over and turn it over, because everything is to be found in the sources. And you know what? In our Judaism, the same thing. Judaism is a whole array of versions, from the most, let's say, liberal, modern side of Judaism to the most, let's say, traditional, as the Haredim are, and all of them are basing their views on the same books by different interpretations. So we do the same thing, but fortunately we don't kill each other. In the worst case, we throw kugel. How do you translate kugel to English? Okay. The worst case. So in the worst case, we throw the kugel at each other and we ruin each other's shirt. Okay? And there are some disputes also between Christian denominations, as much as I know, as well. Okay? But people do not slaughter each other in the streets. Unfortunately, what happens in the Middle East is that people resort to violence, as we see, unfortunately, and this is what happens there. But, again, it's not radical Islam, it's radical people who use the Islamic sources according to their culture. And Islam can support any idea, because the sources are so wide, so big, so diverse, that whatever you look for, you can find. It will place you on the scale wherever you want to be, according to your ideas. So this is a small note about radical Islam, how to understand this word, whether to say it or not to say it, because there are some people who wouldn't even say it. And definitely, there is Islam. People are different from each other. The problem is that even if 1 of 1,000 Muslims is radical, we are already in a big problem. Because the Islamic faith actually today is like 1.5 billion people. 1,500 millions. Okay? It's a big number. And if 1 of 1,000 is radical, we already have 1.5 million radical people who are out there. And they can turn the whole world into a maze. It needed 19 to perform the 9/11. It needed 2 to kill the people in the Charlie Hebdo. Okay? It doesn't take many people to devastate the whole city or a whole place. So if only 1.5 million are radicalized to a degree that they will do anything in order to devastate the world is a problem. If only 1 of 1,000 Muslims is radicalized. According to some assessments and polls which were taken in the Islamic societies, the number of radical people in Islamic societies is way more than 1 to 1,000. There are countries which people talk about 30% of people who are totally radical, like in Afghanistan, in Pakistan, in Yemen. Of course, in other places there are more, let's say, modern. But there are hubs in the world of groups of people, many of them, Libya, share the most radical interpretation of Islam, because this is their culture in that place, in those places, before it is their religion.